So in the previous segment, I provided an introduction to standards and said some additional material, such additional things about the International Standards Organization because of its preeminent role in standards. In this segment, I want to talk about how to find standards, and again, focusing on ISO, with ISO being an example of how many standards organizations operate. So how does one find standards? In particular, focusing again on human factors and ergonomics, but the process is similar for other kinds of standards. So typically you might find it useful to use the PowerPoint or the video from this presentation to give you some hints. Second, you need to actually go to the Standards Development Organization website, if it's ISO, ITU, SAE, etc., to go to their websites and actually search. Many people would suggest, oh, go use Google. Google has all kinds of things, but Google is really a last resort. They don't categorize standards very well. You're not likely to find them without a lot of effort. You may not know the terms to use or how to find them. So I tell people to go to the websites directly, but you need to have some detailed knowledge of the organizations involved in order to make that search effective. That's a difficulty. Now, there are commercial organizations that provide standards categorization and help you search their databases, but often they're for fee organizations, and I just don't know a lot of people that actually have used them and can give me their personal views on how effective they are. So what I'm going to do next is to show you the ISO website and how to search it. I want to offer a caution that the website changes every few years, and so the sequence that I describe here may not be exactly the way you do it in the future, but the ideas identified will work very well. So at this point, let me break away from the PowerPoints and go to the ISO website. However, for archival purposes, I should comment that the PowerPoint materials will be helpful for those that do not have access to this video or prefer to do this presentation on their own rather than using the video. So with that, off to the ISO website. To get to the ISO homepage, one needs to type in iso.org, as shown here, and you can see the homepage for ISO. In order to find out about standards about a particular topic, the first thing you have to do is select Taking Part. And Taking Part takes you down to Who Develops Standards. And below that, you want to select Technical Committees. So it's Taking Part, Who Develops Standards, and then Technical Committees. And what you get when you do that, as shown here, is a list of all the technical committees. And as I had mentioned earlier, there's some 300 of them. And you can see the list. I'll just stop and scroll some more, and stop and scroll some more. And if you get down to the end, you can see there are now 319 committees. For the example that I'm going to provide, I want to focus on ISO Technical Committee 22, which is road vehicles. So if we click on Technical Committee 22, we can see a number of things on their page. So here's a description of the technical committee. It's called Road Vehicles. Here's who the staff people are. Again, this particular technical committee is run by the French Standards Organization, AFNOR. Some other information that's on there is the scope of the committee, the number of standards they have published, which is a huge number, 875, with another 256 under development. And these two items refer to how national standards organizations are involved. So there are 29 that are actually participating. They get all the documentation and can vote. The 46 who are observing simply get information but have no ability to vote on standards that are put out by this particular technical committee. Below that are the various groups, the subcommittees that are associated with this technical committee. And notice there are quite a few of them. And then below that are groups with which they liaison with. And finally at the bottom, there's additional contact information for the Secretariat. So moving up, the technical committee of interest to this particular example is Subcommittee 39, Ergonomics. If you notice, the subcommittees are not numbered from 1, and that's because there was some reorganization in the past, so they simply renumbered the committees to avoid confusion with previous committees they had. So let's look at Subcommittee 39, which is Ergonomics. Here is their page, and if we scroll down, you see kind of an interesting aspect to it, that the organization that's responsible for this subcommittee is ANSI, the American National Standards Organization. So the technical committee is a responsibility of the French Standards Organization. This subcommittee is the responsibility of the American National Standards Institute. And in fact, they've delegated their activities to the Society of Automotive Engineers. You can see they have 28 standards and they're developing another 11. And they have these following working groups. You can see there are 4 of them: controls and displays, symbols, hand reach, and something related to information technology. And here's additional information on contacts. Now, if you want to find out exactly what they're working on, you need to go to their work program as identified here. And if you click on it, up will come information about their work program. And there are you identify what you want to see by selecting from here. It defaults to standards under development, but what I want to talk about most are standards that are now published. So here's a listing of the standards that are published. So there's a standard associated with symbols, and each year there's an amendment to that document that comes out because there's a continual growth in symbols. Here's other standards: foot controls, driver hand reach, location, etc., 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 specification for auditory information, and so forth. So those of you that are interested in this particular topic can look at these standards at your leisure. Let me just pick one as an example to show you how you can get additional information. So let's imagine we were interested in warning systems. This turns out to be a technical report. So that's indicated here by TR. So 16352. Last update was 2005. So we click on it. We can get information about it. Here it is. Here's a summary of it. There's some additional details right here. The price, again, you have to buy these, and the price are in Swiss francs. And then if you want to see it, you can't see so easily. There used to be a way, yes, there is a way, to get a look at it by clicking preview. And then in a moment, the preview comes up. And I want to say some things about the preview. Let's scroll down. So the preview gives you the forward. You get on the left side an outline of the document. And here you get the scope. And you get a bibliography or references. But the bulk of the document is not visible. So if you're not sure if you want it, all you have to make a decision as to whether it's of value to you or not is this information, which is a preview, but the meat of the document is not shown, only introduction, definitions, and references. So it is a gamble on your part if you don't know what's in it, even though you have some description. There's still a gamble whether that 198 Swiss francs will be well spent or it's not very useful to you. So that gives you a sense of the process by which one finds standards, at least from ISO. And again, the process is go down to the technical committee, look at the subcommittees that are associated with it, look at their work program, get a list of standards, and make some decisions about whether what's there is useful or not. Other standards organizations, the same process holds. You find the committee that's involved with the work, you see what they're doing, and then you try to determine if their work is relevant to what you do or not. One of the alternative strategies is to have somebody in your organization who really knows what's happening in standards and to ask them for guidance. Involvement really makes this process a lot easier. Again, the strategy you'd like to do is to go to Google or some free public database, be able to get access to the standard by typing in some names, and then download it, and that just doesn't happen. So hopefully that's helpful to you. And now we'll move on to the third part, which is looking at specific human factors and ergonomic standards in detail.